Welcome back. So, bit of a hectic day. We're just trying to get ready for the whole Vegas thing, and I took some time to enjoy myself, and I'm posting an entertainment guy video today as well. So there you go. So we're up to the Blackhawks, and Chicago's a team that has had their downs over the last couple of years, but the second half of the season tells you they may very well get better. Now, of course, this season their jerseys are going to change. What's been leaked from NHL 20 is that where it's red here and it looks clerical, it's going to be red all the way around, except from here back it's still going to be white. So it's going to be colored very similarly to some other teams. I think of Vancouver, I think Toronto's like that. There's a bunch of teams that are like that. So it's going to be white at the back, not at the front. I don't even know if I'm going to bother picking it up because it's such a minor change to me anyways. So Chicago, really, in all honesty, is a much more dangerous team than they get credit for. This season, they had 84 points. The season prior, they had 76. Before that, 109, 103, 102, looking back to 2014, 2015. Of course, 2015, the last time they won the Stanley Cup. So they're not that far removed, and they've still got a lot of that core that's still active on the team, that still knows how to win when they need to. Now, it's been a frustrating past, I'm going to say 4 seasons. It has. Whether it's good regular seasons followed by absolute destruction in the playoffs or just missing the playoffs altogether. This past season in goals for, they had 270, which was 8th in the National Hockey League. This team does not have problems scoring goals. None. If they get the exact same production from this team that they got last season, they should be a playoff team because goals against, they had 292. They were 30th overall. Keep in mind, the New York Islanders went from 31st to 1st in defense. So, if Chicago gets better goaltending, if their blue line is a little bit better than it was last season, this should be a playoff team. That being said, it's the Central, and the Central is, of course, really, really tough. At the end of October this year, they had a 6-4-3 record. I believe they were 3-0-2 out of the gate. They looked pretty good. But I had some concern that their wins were via shootout, overtime, and they weren't winning anything convincingly. In November, it kind of fell apart, 9-12-5 at the end of November. And, of course, in and around that time, you're looking at the expulsion of Joel Quenneville from the organization. And then they bring in a new coach and a new system. And things do get better. Their record is 15-20-6 at the end of December, 18-24-9 by the end of January. By the end of February, however, they're at 27-28-9. Jeremy Colleton seems to be able to bring in a system that makes things better, and this team starts playing well enough that there's some conversation about them still being mathematically alive for a playoff spot. By the end of March, they're 34-33-11, and in April, 36-34-12 is their final record. Now, I haven't done first half, second half with anybody. I wanted to do it with Chicago because it's easy to look at their 84 points and say, well, they're just not good enough. But first half, they were 15-20-6. Second half, they were 21-14-6. So if the team that played that second half of the season is the team we can expect over the full season this year, that'd be 42 wins, and that'd be 12 overtime points. So that's 96 points overall. It may very well not happen that they jump up to 96, but all they have to do is play as well for a full season as they did in the second half to make that happen, and there are some reasons why I think it could happen. Their roster is very solid, and it's a very deep roster. Now, they're looking for the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. So they were out. And in 2017, 2016, they were out in round 1 both years, and that's after a 2015 Stanley Cup. Their most recent experience in the playoffs was 2017, where they were shockingly swept by the Nashville Predators in round 1, and that was a loss that really stung for Chicago. And as a franchise, things have gone backwards for them since then. But there's hope, and we'll get to that. Now, who's out? Artem Anisimov is out. Dominic Cahoon is out. They're going to miss Cahoon. There's no two ways about it. Cam Ward is out. Ward likely, I would think, is going to retire. And Henry Jokiharju, who got moved in the offseason because they believe their other prospects are of equal or greater importance, and they wanted to add a little bit more depth up front, and they did that. So, looking at their overall roster, and you look down the left side, you got Brennan Saad, Alex DeBrincat, likely Zach Smith, although he can play center, and he could very well end up in the middle. Dominic Kubalik, Alex Nylander and Alexander Fortin. Now, Fortin played relatively well in a call-up. May very well get some shots at a roster spot there. Down the middle, you got Jonathan Toews, Dylan Strome, David Kampf, Ryan Carpenter, who can also play wings, so I could see Smith at center. Kampf dropped down to the fourth line. Carpenter on the fourth line as well. John Quenneville, who they picked up in the offseason. Matthew Highmore's still there. He didn't play for them at all this past season. He had a cup of coffee the year before. And Kirby Dach could very well be a wild card. He's playing well in a summer World Junior tournament that's going on. He may very well push for a spot. And if he's able to go into, say, third line center, that may free things up where Chicago may be able to move somebody out. Having somebody on an entry-level contract who's playing well, which would be Kirby Dach, that could be a huge game changer for Chicago. Now down the right side, Brendan Perlini is there. I'm not sure how long Brendan Perlini's on this roster. There were rumors they were trying to move him during the offseason. So far, that hasn't happened, but it still could. Patrick Kane, you don't normally want Kane and Toews on the same line. You split them up. You make sure you have two scoring lines there. Andrew Shaw, Drake Caggiula, and Dylan Sakura. And we'll get to talking about Sakura in a minute here. Blue line, you got Duncan Keith, Eric Gustafson. They had Calvin DeHaan, Brent Seabrook, whose contract they have been trying to move unsuccessfully. Oli Mata, who has been added from Pittsburgh. Connor Murphy, and that means the Slater Cuckoo is the extra. And then you still got Adam Boqvist, Nicholas Bowden, and Dennis Gilbert, who are all out there as potential defensemen for this team. This is a very expensive blue line. I'm not going to lie about that. Keith, DeHaan, Seabrook, Mata, Murphy. That's a very expensive blue line. Gustafson, who's the bargain on that blue line, he's up as a UFA next summer. So for Chicago, this blue line that looks at least deeper than it was last year, this is an important year for them because next summer it could get a lot tighter with salary cap situations, and it could be much more important that they try to get rid of that Seabrook cap hit. In net, Corey Crawford, Robin Lehner. I put them as Crawford as the starter, Lehner as the backup. But in reality, I think both of them are going to get equal starting time. Crawford, due to the amount of concussions he's had and that history, I think they're going to keep an eye on him. They're going to manage his starts. And I think having Lehner there is perfect. Lehner started a little bit over half the games for the New York Islanders this past season. Greiss and Lehner split the net pretty evenly. So I think he's used to this situation. And I think with a one-year contract, he'll be motivated. Which leaves Colin Dealey as the number 3 and Kevin Lankinen as the number 4. Lankinen had a very good World Tournament. It doesn't look like it's going to equal a chance for him to play NHL games this year because Dealey is the number 3. So even if Crawford got hurt, it would only make Lankinen likely the number 3 in that organization. Does he have trade value at this stage? Probably not. Could he down the road? Absolutely. For goals, I look at Patrick Kane. Patrick Kane, goals, points, assists. He is the offense. He had an amazing year, and he is, to me, one of the most impressive players in the league. And in an age where youth rules the day, he's a little bit older than a lot of these kids, and yet he looks just as good as he did when he was younger. Dark horse, Colin Delia. Delia had some rough starts down the stretch, but if Crawford gets hurt and it's Lehner and Delia, which is quite possible, I would not rule out Delia having a pretty solid season. In the what about category, I have Dylan Sakura. So Sakura had 8 assists and I believe it was 33 games. If he ends up, and depending on which list I looked at, either he was on the first line or he was a healthy scratch. Sakura, he's not going to be first line. But there is some upside there still. He's still young enough. You can see some upside there. He's not going to end up with 0 goals this year, I wouldn't think, unless he only plays a handful of games. But he's my what about when it comes to the Chicago Blackhawks. Trade bait, I went with Brendan Perlini only because, while you could qualify Seabrook, there's no taker on that contract. One rumor that was going around about draft day was that Chicago offered up their draft pick, which became Kirby Dach, to Vancouver for their number 10 draft pick on the agreement they take Seabrook's contract, and Vancouver said no. So I don't know a confirmation on that necessarily because, again, it's just trade rumor, right? But it would show that Seabrook's contract is basically a no-go for teams at this stage. And again, I don't have a 100% source on that. Just I saw it from a few different places that was what was rumored to have happened. And it wouldn't necessarily surprise me. Vancouver, in a cap situation right now, not a horrible one, but a bit of a situation. And if they took on Seabrooks, they would definitely have a cap problem coming up as soon as maybe next summer. But Seabrook's still there. He's still a useful defenseman. It's not that Seabrook's not a good defenseman. It's just his cap hit's too high for what he provides at this point in time. So for Chicago, if Boqvist is ready, if Bowden is ready, it's going to force something to happen on this team that we may not be able to see right now because you can only have so many defensemen. The one thing with Bowden and Boqvist, you can send them down and they don't have to clear waivers. So they may very well start the season in the minors and then work their way up from there. So for Chicago, I really think this team can challenge for a playoff spot. I'll say for a likely finish, they could finish as low as 7th. They could. But for me, I don't see that happening. I think the lowest I could see them finishing is 6th. And I could see them finishing as high as 3rd. I could. This is a really, really tricky team to predict because Crawford's health. And was Leonard really good last year, or did he just have really good coaching with the Islanders, and now he's going somewhere else? Now, Leonard's numbers in Buffalo, he had that one bad year before he became an unrestricted free agent and went to Chicago. But prior to that, he had 2 good years statistically. So technically, 3 of the last 4 years have been good for Leonard. I am leaning more towards these guys finishing in the playoffs than out. But a lot has to fall in place for them. Again, just they have to keep their goals for up at the same level they were last year and get that goals against down. Adding Leonard in replacement for Cam Ward is huge. Cam Ward, who has played a long time in the NHL and has a really impressive resume, and he's got a lot of wins, and he has that Stanley Cup from 2006. Ward looked like he was in over his head at times last year, and it cost them. And they had that really long losing streak in there that basically submarined their chances of winning and making the playoffs. If they avoid that stretch this year, if they can avoid falling below 500 in December, if their goaltending manages to keep things together, and the revamped blue line is as good as management thinks it is, this should be a playoff team. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video, and hey, are they going to miss Yoki Haru? Does Nylander make the team? There's a lot of interesting storylines about this that have yet to be written. So Chicago, I think they likely end up back in the playoffs. I'm just not sure how, since the Central's really stacked. But let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. Just happened upon this video, and I will talk to you again soon.